Okay, good afternoon, directors and staff. My name is Jake Martins. I'm the General Manager of Corporate Services, and I am pleased to call this meeting to order this afternoon and to conduct the election for the chair and vice chair as our first order of business. Before doing so, I'll just acknowledge that we are conducting our business today on the traditional unceded territory of the Comox First Nation. The election process for the Water Committee is conducted under the same general guidelines as our other elections for committees and commissions. The one exception I will note is that voting for the election is using the weighted votes that have been assigned through bylaw 1783. Otherwise, we seek the same process generally in asking for nominations and then conducting a secret ballot election should more than one director be nominated for either position. Are there any questions before we proceed? Seeing none, and from anyone online, seeing none as well, I don't believe. So with that, we'll start with the position of chair for the Water Committee, and I will call a first time for nominations, and I will start with Director Grieve.
I'd like to nominate Director Morin.
Thank you. I will call a second time for any nominations for the position of chair. And I will call a third and final time for any nominations for the position of chair. Seeing no further nominations, Director Morin, do you allow your name to stand for chair? Director Morin has confirmed in the affirmative, and so I'm pleased with that to announce you as chair for the Water Committee for 2024. And with that, directors, now we'll now move to the vice chair position. And so I will start by again calling for nominations for the position of vice chair. And I see, recognize Director Morin first. Director Morin.
We didn't pre-plan that. I actually didn't know that Director Grieve was going to nominate me, but I would like to put his name forward for vice chair, please.
Thank you. Director Morin has nominated Director Grieve, and I will call a second time for any nominations for the vice chair position. And I'll call a third and final time for any nominations. Seeing no further nominations, Director Grieve, do you allow your name to stand? He has confirmed in the affirmative. And so with that, Director Grieve, I'm pleased to announce you as vice chair for 2024 for the Water Committee. Thank you very much. That concludes the process. For the Water Committee, there are no ballots to destroy. And so with that, I will turn to Director Morin to preside over the remainder of this meeting.
Okay, hopefully folks don't get tired of seeing me this afternoon. We are behind with this meeting, and so hopefully we can move things through with some good discussion as well. I would like to first of all acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional unceded territory of the Comox First Nation. And we will move into the summary of public input regarding the proposed financial plan. And we'll turn it over to Lucy. Thank you.
Thank you through the chair. So in the interest of time, I'll just keep my pieces in for this meeting short. From a public engagement perspective, we do have 2 questions that are out on our website. Plus we have 5 pieces of feedback. So some promising results out there that we will keep moving conversations, interactive conversations with the citizens going. Thank you. And those are available out there on the site for directors to actually read all the complete posts.
Great, thank you. Okay, the next item is the Comox Valley Water Committee voting structure, and there is a report. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that. Sorry about that. So the advisory committee minutes from February 1st. Okay, second, and any discussion on those? Seeing none, is there anyone opposed to received? Seeing none. Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the voting structure now. Thank you. I'm sorry, we're trying to actually dispense with receipt, but not for this item, so is there a motion to receive? Okay, and a seconder? Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none and nobody online? Thank you, that's carried. We'll move on to the financial plan, and we have Lucy introducing that. Thank you.
Thank you, through the chair. I do believe that the directors here today have been part of our financial planning process since February 5th. So unless there's any questions, I don't think I'll add any more on the process that we're going to walk through. We good?
Okay, I don't see any questions and nobody online. So we'll move forward with the next item, which is the water supply core service. And we have Mark Rutten coming up to present that overview. Thank you.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone, through the CEO and through the chair. Also, in the interest of time, I'll keep this really brief. This is the same presentation that I made last Monday at the board meeting. And so I'll just move through fairly quickly, but I'm happy to stop anywhere if there are questions or discussion on any of these slides. This is our this is our core service summary for the water service. Here's how we measure success in this service: high quality water, reliability and resilience, affordability, watershed protection, conservation, and working with Comox First Nations. Got some major initiatives in this service. The Water South Extension Project is a big initiative for the next couple of years. Water Master Planning will provide a path forward for this service, and water rate review work, much of which was completed last year, but has a big impact on our smaller water services especially. Corporate energy and emissions. Last year we did some baseline assessment work. This year we plan to determine some projects to help reduce greenhouse gas emissions and present those to the water committee and hopefully embed them into the future financial plan. Trends, challenges, and opportunities. The first three bullets are some challenges for this service. Costs are high. That's a challenge for a lot of our services right now. Water conservation messaging, something that we struggled with last year. We've got various services with their own water supply and their own kind of resilience to climate change. So a consistent message across all services is challenging. The water treatment is cost prohibitive for small systems. So we're seeing that in places like Graham Lake and even in Union Bay a little bit. That's a challenge. Asset management is a big opportunity for this service. It's an asset intensive service, and good management of those assets is going to help us in the future. This is a total expenses across all of the CBRD's water services. So it just paints a bit of a picture of the magnitude. And then just focusing in on that top orange bar, just want to highlight that you can see in the future we're contributing more money to reserves than in the past. And this is as a result of the rate review work that we did for electoral area services, water services, and starting to build up some of those reserves. This is a slide on revenue. Most of the revenue for the CBRD's water services comes from the sale of bulk water in the service that you're going to hear about today. The orange part is tax revenue that comes mostly from the rural area smaller services. And final slide here, just a summary of how the service is aligned with our key drivers. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Great, thank you very much. Any questions or comments? You got it all out of your system in the last meeting, I guess. Doesn't look like there's anyone online. Okay, are we dispensing with receipt for this one? Okay, we can do that. All right, thank you so much. And we're moving on to the function 300 and the financial plan, and we've got Chris LaRose coming up to present that. Thank you.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone, through the chair. So 2023 was a pretty big year for the Comox Valley water system. It was the second full year of operation of our shiny new water treatment facility. And thanks to last year's drought, it was also our biggest water consumption year on record. Whatever the climate holds for us in the year ahead, 2024 is pretty sure to be an exciting year for us as we embark upon our water master planning process, in working in close collaboration with our municipal counterparts to plan for the future of the service. Working closely with finance, Mike and I have put together a presentation to walk you through the highlights for the proposed financial plan. So first, just a bit of a summary of the service. So the CBWS treats water from the Comox Lake watershed at the new water treatment plant that was finished in October of 2021. And it supplies bulk treated water to Courtney, Comox, and the KFN, as well as approximately 2,000 properties in the surrounding rural areas. And it does all this through a system of transmission mains and reservoirs, which are highlighted on that map there. The municipalities and the KFN manage their own distribution systems to take that bulk water and deliver it directly to the homes as our CPRD distribution system does for the rural properties. So as our manager of water services, Mike Hirschmiller leads a crew of 17 water distribution and water treatment operators that manage the 6 CVRD managed, our owned and operated water systems that operate out of the recently completed Comox Valley water treatment plant. So Mike and I are going to tag team through a bit of an update on what we were up to last year and what we have on the agenda for the coming year. And first over to Mike to talk about the core service.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you. So yeah, 300, our regional water service. Just want to go through some of the accomplishments and then our future work plans, and we will get going. So 300 updates. One of the big things we did this year was update a bunch of our safety plans. There's been changes with the regulations from WorkSafe. And really, we had kind of, separate confined space, lockout, tag out, safe work procedures, standard operating procedures. And we really wanted to kind of bundle some of them together because some of the things, for instance, reservoir cleaning, which I have a slide just showing an example of that in a bit, but it really needs multiple procedures, multiple assessments and ways to safely do the job. So we worked through this year really packaging that up, working really closely with our safety coordinator with Rondi, as well as a couple different consultants, and really beefed up those plans. So feeling really good about that. Another large one was CityWorks and getting all of our linear assets really into a GIS labor so we could actually use that and using CityWorks to track all of our maintenance tasks through our work orders, our service requests, as well as just having that being able to track. Where we've really seen the benefit this year is understanding how much time things are taking much more clearly and easy to see, as well as follow up. So actually finishing some of these things where they're maybe not on the top of the priority list, but they get down there and you don't lose track of those anymore. So this has been a really a good year for us. Actually, we've been working towards this for the last 2 years, but this year in 2023 we saw a really the fruits of that labor. So that was encouraging. As well as this year, we did in 2023, initiated the water master planning process. Looking forward to more of that in 2024, as well as we did some reservoir condition assessments. So just with those reservoirs as the example, I just wanted to show you some of the work we do in these reservoirs. We used to, have to throw up a ladder, and there was quite a heavy cage. You drop down, so the operators noticed that was it was difficult, a bit of a safety concern if the lid kind of fell on you. So we replaced those ones. These are some of the older ones. So we replaced that with the second photo there, from the left, just basically with a ladder all the way down and a shield over it to just protect it from people getting up. These are all inside fenced locations as well. And then cleaning the reservoirs. So we did our, our water treatment plant, as Chris said, filtered water. We were on this system for many decades of using just river water without it being filtered. So we've now second year of operation. We feel the lines have been flushed. We're noticing residuals are staying longer. The chlorine residuals are lasting longer in the system, and the water's been cleaner throughout. So now we're cleaning the reservoirs systematically from the beginning to the end of the system. So by the end of 2024, we'll have our reservoirs will have all been cleaned, and we will hopefully be getting rid of that kind of residual turbidity that's been in the system. And this is just a dashboard to show you what CityWorks is looking like. So obviously you can't read it, but this is kind of how we work to track our maintenance using that new software. So the work plan looking forward into 2024, just continuing. So the safety component will never be truly finished. So we're further work with our safe work procedures and safety management program. Implementation of CityWorks in the vertical infrastructure. So we've got the linear stuff, basically the stuff below ground has all been accounted for, and we're using it. Now we're entering our vertical assets, so our buildings, reservoirs, certain things that aren't part of your linear stuff. Using our assessments that we got last year, we're going to be doing some reservoir upgrades, and these are just kind of minor maintenance things, minor to significant maintenance tasks that are just they're pointed out in a short-term, long-term kind of timeline. So we're picking the ones away that are we should be doing short-term. The water master planning process, really the majority of that work will be done this year. We're looking at the Puntledge River pump station, which is a backup pump station we've had for our old chlorination system. Now with the new filtration plant, we're just going to be doing a study to see the usefulness of this. It's not there's not much use to it, but the potential that it's there, do we keep it or not? And then just looking at our water communications, we've heard from you as well as some of the public just about trying to fine tune those communications with the bylaw. And I'm going to hand it back to Chris for the watershed.
Thanks, Mike. Pretty big year for watershed protection as well last year. So we updated the watershed risk assessment, which is the kind of the backbone of the plan. So we worked through a process with the watershed advisory group and brought that through the committee for approval. We installed a new data buoy and a thermistor string in Comox Lake, the first of 3, which we'll be doing kind of on an annual basis last year, this year, and next, which provides some crucial data for telling us the kind of how the strata of temperatures work in the lake. And that'll inform better hydrodynamic modeling of the lake in future. We developed a draft conservation plan for the Perseverance lands, previously known as the Coal Beach property, and now also in collaboration or kind of along with the neighboring parcel that was acquired by the CCFS, the CVRD, and the village. Continue to do our our monthly and continuous water quality monitoring. Continued rollout of our Connected by Water communications campaign to educate the public about the importance of clean water, including delivery of the World Water Day event at the water treatment plant. We also undertook coordinated a community wildfire resilience workshop, potentially the first of a few, just to pull together the local stakeholders to work towards a better awareness of the risks of wildfire locally. And then we coordinated feedback to a provincial process looking for feedback on the watershed security and strategy and fund. A couple photos here. Top left is the 2 boats that were used to deploy the thermistor string on a very nice day out on Comox Lake. So that buoy has a satellite telemetry that gives us live data, which is shown in graphical form on the bottom. Again, you won't be able to read that, but what you can see on the left side, all those colors are the different the temperatures at the different levels. That would be, I think, starting in June. So that's summertime, very different, many different layers of many different temperatures as you kind of go down the water column. as you go into the fall and into the winter, the temperature of the lake at depth approaches, or at the surface approaches the temperature at depth. Until the middle of the winter, the entire lake is at the uniform temperature, lower temperature, which is really, really interesting. Yeah, and so when we have, so we'll be able to layer on the 2 other locations in the lake, you know, a couple of years from now, and be able to draw some pretty important conclusions from that to help us manage the reservoir. And then just a photo of their conservation plan at the left. And looking ahead to the next year, so looking forward to implementing the conservation plan, development of the restricted covenant for those lands at the east end of Comox Lake. We're working on a proposal that we'll bring through the committee about a potential ambassador program for the lake, educating the public. So importance of boat safety, no invasive species, that type of thing. Something that's been done successfully in Sprout Lake. We have plans to potentially consider that here. Like I mentioned, an additional thermistor. We're kind of top priority is the development of completing development of an emergency management plan for the watershed, and that we've got a subcommittee of the WAG that helping guide that process. We're looking at doing a proper functioning condition assessment of Black Lake, which is just above our property there, recently acquired property, which is some really high watershed value. And finally, looking to work with the Comox to incorporate some Indigenous historical context into the WPP. Over to Mike, just a quick update on our treatment plant.
Thanks, Chris. So with the treatment plant, also not on the slide here, but we've just following up kind of from that last slide, we're also doing with our consultant. We have a program that we're working with the school district, and we've been getting about 10 to 12 tours a year that we're doing with kids and our consultant. And they do it's a 1 hour walk through starting at our plant, just through into the puntledge. They're looking at kind of understanding the watershed, learning about the watershed. And then they come into the treatment plant and we do a 45-minute tour of the treatment process that I believe most of you have been on. So anyway, we've had really good feedback from that, and it's just adding to the education of you know, the watershed protection, and as well as the importance of water conservation. So it's something I wanted to highlight. The 302 function treatment plant, as Chris said, second full year of operation. We're still working through some of the warranty items with the contractors, still occasionally on site, but working through some of those last remaining items. And some of the delay on getting some of these done have been just parts and pieces, trying to get stuff with the shortage kind of in certain supply chains. And but we are working through that with them. Still developing safe work procedures and standard operating procedures. The operators have done over 100 now. So we're just trying to work that into our maintenance tasks of the plant as well. And then they've made also some improvements to operations. So some of the stuff I've actually will highlight on the next slide, I think, but it's the sodium hypochlorite is how we disinfect the water. We don't use chlorine gas anymore, as well as a addition of a second polymer system. And I think to have those here. So polymer is on the left. It's a chemical that works with the binding of particles in the water. So you can see there, they like to be warm. So we've got them some blankets and raise them up a little bit as well. And we're working through having there's a filter aid polymer system and a backwash aid polymer system. So the original design had a single polymer to do both, and it worked okay for both, but not great for either. So we're optimizing the processes. We've developed a second polymer system to optimize the chemical for both of these processes, and then the end result is basically we're going to be we'll use a less chemical, and because we can optimize them both for those processes. So it's been you know, a fair amount of work for our operators, but we're coming to close to completing that project. And then on the right hand side there's some of the chemical tanks. And what we've done is it was the operators brought this to my attention. We had our sodium hypochlorite being delivered in the smaller of the two tanks because of the process thought by the design engineer. It was just a little bit different than the guys wanted to operate it. So what we've done now is we've switched the tanks over. So we're using some bigger tanks for sodium hypochlorite delivery, and the smaller tanks are for caustic. And basically what that's done in a nutshell is it's taken our from 7 to 10 deliveries a year, or sorry, 10 to 12 deliveries a year in the smaller tanks. And now we're getting between 6 and 7 deliveries a year. So it's, you know, that works out to about $10,000 savings every year moving forward. So that was done, very minor work from our operators, and about $1,000 in parts and pieces, but now that's completed and it's working really well. Looking forward to 2024 for the water treatment plant function. We're going to complete that FAP and BAP system we we're talking about with the polymers, getting our vertical assets. So the whole plant itself is considered a vertical asset. The treated water pipeline and the raw water pipeline are linear, but we'll be getting the whole treatment plant incorporated into CityWorks this year, which will help with maintenance and future asset replacement planning. Keep developing the preventative maintenance plans as well as SOPs and SWPs moving forward into this year. And Chris is going to talk about 303 and 304.
Thanks, Mike. So I mentioned briefly at the front end, there's two existing sub-functions for this this service. So 301 is watershed protection, 302 is water treatment, which we just presented. So we're proposing to add in this plan, we propose to add two new sub-functions, one to capture all shared water distribution costs, and then 304 to capture all shared water treatment costs. And this thought process was triggered by the completion of the new ops center and water treatment plant, because of the shared space. There's a lot of shared costs there that need to be split fairly between all of the water services in a way that we didn't really have pre-existing. So having these new sub-functions just provides a very easy and transparent way for us to identify those costs and then allocate them between services. And the cost for each of those will be kind of budgeted based on the 3-year rolling average of actual time spent between the services. That's how they'll be allocated between services. So proportional to the level of effort incurred for each service by our operators. So I think you're pretty familiar with these slides, just the trends, challenges, and opportunities that we face for this service and all other water systems. Presented those last week. And Mike has touched on some of the innovative ideas that we've implemented to help offset some of those cost increases. And Mark touched on these board strategic priorities, but just very briefly, the three that are mentioned within the core service plan are the Water South Extension Project, and we have a slide later on where I'll provide a bigger update. Our water master planning process, which began last year, and like Mike mentioned, the bulk of which will be done this year. Close collaboration with municipal staff, and some touch points with the water committee as well. And Mark gave an update on the CEEP initiatives, but just briefly, we've just completed energy audits for our facilities, and we are working to prioritize the opportunities identified. And this year we focused on feasibility studies of those initiatives, working towards implementation starting in 2025. So getting into a summary of the kind of the numbers, the financial plan. So starting with human resources. So these are projections based on past years. Only actual time is spent on a service is billed to that service. So that applies to the operators, whereas some of the other allocations, such as management and engineering support, are allocated differently. So increases to total full-time equivalent FTEs in 2024 are from a shift of part-time water treatment operator to full-time, and a proposed addition of an additional engineering analyst position to support planning and asset management for the service. And that'll be split between our water services and sewer. And then in 2025, the service will contribute towards the proposed new cybersecurity position and a branch assistant position for the engineering services. So that explains that 0.56 increase in 2025. Expenses summary for year over year, fairly modest increase overall, with the larger increases to materials and supplies, contract and general services, offset by reduction in reserve contribution. 2023's contribution was boosted by a prior year surplus, which is entirely looks likely for this year as well. But right now, this is kind of the minimum that would be allocated to reserve contribution in 23. Yeah, a couple of notes there on the side. So we've had an increase in cost for what we pay for bulk water. So the raw water that comes into the plant through provincial regulations. Increase in some equipment, some small tools, landscaping at the facility, and training. Increases in professional fees carrying the brunt of that water master planning costs in 2024, and machinery contracts, about 80K. And a contribution to the CVRD, nearing completion of the CVRD IT fiber project, so interconnection of our sites. On the revenue side, so the revenue for this service is largely composed of the bulk water rate. So our participants pay that rate for every cubic meter of water consumed. I've got a next slide, we'll touch on changes to that. But that increase in year over year from 96 cents last year to $1 this year translates to an increase of just over 400,000 projected revenue. We have some additional cell tower revenue anticipated. So we have an existing contract with Freedom Mobile, and we're in negotiation with TELUS for a potential additional site at one of our reservoirs. And yeah, so in a little more detail on our bulk water rate, which is, like I said, is our key revenue mechanism. So up until last year, it was 96, and we stepped up to $1 per cubic meter early this year. And we currently are expecting that to remain flat, although the results of the water master planning process, when integrated into our asset management work, may cause us to reassess that. But we'll know more when we come back with next year's financial plan. So looking further out to the latter 4 years of this plan, this is just a summary of the key operational expenses. So nothing to highlight here, pretty steady. And then debt for the service. So the biggest one remains so we do have some smaller debt being retired this year and next, which is helping to reduce our annual debt servicing costs. The biggest one remains the water treatment plant debt, but which you can see it is reducing over time. And here's the total principal and interest payments expected by the service over the 5-year plan. And you can see that kind of decrease, significant step down between 24 and 27 that's occurring as those two earlier debt issuances are retired. And now quickly over to capital planning. So just a note first about asset management. It's a critical part of the work we do these days. We're working to update our asset inventory and our replacement schedule. Update the risk and criticality assessments. Continue, like Mike said, our integration of our asset to information to GIS. And working to complete implementation of our computerized maintenance management system, the CMMS, with integration of the vertical assets like Mike was mentioning. We're also looking at decision support software, which is kind of the next step in software solution for managing asset inventories. And then crucially, planning development of a condition assessment program, which would provide much needed data into our asset inventory to update our risk and criticality ratings. So looking at the next 5 years for our capital plan, just wanted to highlight here one final year of costs on the water treatment plant. So we're just over $400,000 estimated this year to tidy up some final pieces, working with our contractor. Annual capital projects, Mike touched on many of those that are highlighted for this coming year. And then bottom line, there are water south extension. As you can see, engineering costs are picking up this year and next for sure, with the bulk of the capital work expected over the subsequent 2 years, 26 and 27. And this slide summarizes the latter 5 years of the 10-year plans. Nothing much to highlight there. And a highlight slide on the Water South Extension project. So it's still estimated at $20 million, of which 7.4 is anticipated to come from the ICIP funding, which was secured through the water treatment project. This project was packaged with that one. And then at the bottom there are some kind of approximate apportionment between the 3 partners for the project. And as I mentioned on the previous slide, this project is anticipated to be delivered in 26 and 27 and have it completed before the March 28 deadline. Yeah, a couple slides here on reserves. We have some withdrawals coming out of the reserve over the next few years, but as you can see over the 5-year plan, the capital works reserve is anticipated to grow significantly, which is setting us up well to help fund some of the projects that are going to be coming out of the water master planning process. And likewise with the development cost charge reserve. And we do have a DCC study planned, just pending the completion of the water master planning process. That'll allow us to update the rates and make sure that we're collecting enough from the growth related projects. And finally, a summary slide just summarizing how our activities, our service activities align with the board strategic objectives. So that's all from us, but we're happy to answer any questions.
Great, thanks so much. I really love this committee. Happy to be back in chair. Thank you to Director Grieve for nominating me. We will get on to some discussion, but I just wanted to say that I love the innovation in this department and you know, adding some of those educational components and around conservation and watershed protection, the ambassador that you mentioned. I'm excited about the master plan unfolding. So I'll hand it over to Director Arbor. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Good presentation, and overall I'm happy with the numbers presented. I just thought I would highlight that our biggest capital project this term will be Water South, as was just explained, and just want to acknowledge the partnership with Courtney and Comox First Nation on this one. The MBA was signed in 2018. Was for those who weren't there, that was basically to obtain funding for the water treatment plant. And one of the things that made that happen was Comox First Nations participation and the request to explore a partnership around water for the South. So I just thought I'd mention Chair Cole Hamilton, myself, and staff were at KFN a couple of weeks ago talking about how to align ourselves around this project, and there was a lot of positive energy in the room. So I'm really confident it's another cost for my area moving over from Cumberland, but I really feel that we have a really good equitable project that will benefit Courtney, ourselves, and KFN. So look forward to put shovel in the ground eventually on that one.
Thank you. And we'll go online to Director Cole Hamilton.
Thank you, Chair, and welcome back to the chair seat. I had a question just about the anticipated cost of bulk water going forward. We have it at $1 for the next 5 years, and I understand there could be some changes as the management plan gets more advanced. But I'm just interested to know what sort of certainty we have for that as a base case, that for 5 years we'll be charging you know, an identical amount in theory in terms of our budgeting.
Yeah, sure. Through the chair. So I guess a low level of confidence, I would say, just given the water master planning underway this year. I think if we hadn't had that planning process kind of happening, we probably would have taken a closer look at the bulk water rate But I think just in anticipation, there's a high level of uncertainty, which projects are going to be identified and how they're going to be sequenced or timed. So yeah, there is I'd say a likelihood that we could see, a bit of a change in the projected bulk water rate coming out of the completion of that process, but it just felt premature to take a guess at the outcome.
Thank you. Could I have a follow-up, Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
So thanks, Chris. I really appreciate that. And so when that update comes at that point, will we have a fairly clear idea of sort of looking forward? We'll be able to sort of take our base case and adjust it based upon the plan. And at that point, we'll have a sort of a fairly clear idea for the next handful of years.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the intention. So the water master planning process is meant to complement the asset management work done to date. So asset management gives us a clear idea on what we have already, when it needs to be rehabilitated or replaced. The water master plan it complements that by telling us what we're going to need to help accommodate growth in the community. So asset management planning doesn't do that on its own. So it's the two pieces when they come together that will allow us to have a very clear, the high level of clarity for that 10-year plus horizon to be able to provide some rates with certainty.
Okay, great. Thanks, Chris. Look forward to hearing that.
Great, thank you. Oh, we've got Director Arbor again. Go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. I know we're on budget, but I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, and I know we have a new chair, but in preparation for the next meeting, we're already getting a lot of signals from the province around the expected drought level and the low snowpack and all of that. So I expect our community is going to start asking questions, and I think so will this committee. So I would just make a mention. I know it's not quite captured in this 35-page presentation, but if at the next meeting we were able to get a briefing whether we'll be able to be aligned with the provinces this year and avoid last year, or what we may anticipate for our water reservoir, that would be great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we did have some initial discussions last year around taking a look at, taking a look to the future. I don't know if you have anything to add around that, Chris?
Yes, certainly it's been a topic of discussion at the staff level recently, and we are putting our thoughts to a staff report coming forward in March, to the March cycle, where we'll kind of update, that on that report we brought forward in November, just, what happened last year and some options for what to do this year. Yeah.
That's great. And Councillor Kerr.
I'm really looking forward to that report. And I also wonder, you almost get into like an ethical debate about this, because we are lucky. We have a glacier above us. We have a healthy reserve, but there's so many parts in BC and Canada and North America and the world that, have drastic, water shortages. What's our role for conserving water? Can we water our lawns, indiscriminately, and other parts of the world can't, other parts of the island can't? So I just think, there's the numbers, and then there's the bigger kind of philosophical question. And should we align with our neighbors provincially, nationally, globally, to have a similar approach? And then also even locally, we have, we can have water. I can turn on my tap in Comox, but we have farmers, 5-minute drive away whose, wells have gone dry. So just putting that into context as, not to write a 3,000-page report, but some of those other elements might be helpful for us as we discuss how best to conserve water. Thanks.
Okay, Director Grieve.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Building on Director Kerr's comments there, I'm just wondering, we still have our major community basically not on water meters, and this discussion has been going on for 12 years. So is there, and I noticed water meters were part of the presentation, so is there any appetite moving forward to perhaps engage more with the general public around the necessity of water meters and how they, especially when you put them on a tiered system, they drive conservation. In fact, the old adage engineers always use is, if you can't measure it, you can't value it, right? So I'm just wondering, is there any discussion at the staff level between the municipalities and the regional district around conservation?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first part of your question was about specifically about public outreach. We haven't discussed that, although I will say that our water master planning process, one of the 6 tasks or objectives of that is to take a much closer look at how water conservation could influence the growth, the timing and scale of the growth related projects, just to help kind of inform local business cases for accelerated rollout of water metering. Because there is, our sense is, even not having completed the assessment, the analysis, our sense is that there is, significant savings to be had as a community if we are able to reduce our per capita consumption, avoid and delay some of those major capital works that are otherwise coming pretty quickly. As I mentioned, last year was our highest water consumption ever. And by all accounts, this year could be another very, very, very dry one.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other lights or anybody online and no other lights on, so we'll dispense with receipt. And would anyone like to move the recommendation? Seconded by Grant, and I think we've had a fulsome discussion. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Seeing none, that's carried. And that's the end of our agenda. Okay, and we're terminated. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair Moran. Great job.